Welcome to Vitalify Unplugged. You're listening to your hosts, Gree and Steph.
In this podcast, we talk about everything health and well-being, science and technology, and ancient wisdom.
This is for the quirky humans navigating the messy middle, looking for the path to true vitality.
It's for the curious minds and tired bodies looking for clarity, energy, and inspiration that works your way. Hey, it's your friend Gree, intuitive AI and tech whisperer, 60 plus full throttle energy bunny, chasing fun, fairness, and freedom. Now, can I ask you something? Have you ever ended your day feeling invisible, drained, maybe even resentful, and whispered to yourself, I'm just exhausted? What if the real story is you never had the edge you needed? The kind of edge that protects your energy, that says this much and no more.
Hey, and I'm Steph, your holistic nurse, soulful scribbler, magnetic mama, dancing through midlife with truth's magic and messy, wild-hearted freedom. And I've spent years saying yes to being the good girl, to being the helper, and the one that holds it all. And you know what? That pattern didn't just cost me time, it cost me the trust in my own body. Because here's what I've learned. When we say yes while our body says no, our nervous system pays the price. Our self-worth gets watered down, and we blur the line between care and self-abandonment.
Right.
But boundaries, boundaries. They're a radical return to truth, energy, and to self-respect.
And today we're rewriting what boundary means. Not a harsh limit, but a sacred kind of threshold, the doorway to your sovereignty.
So why do boundaries hit differently in midlife? And I would say because for so long I thought love meant being available, and that mothering, nursing, partnering, performing, it all got mixed up and blurred until one day I actually couldn't keep showing up without breaking down. And it definitely was when I started hitting my 40s that something sort of cracked open, and obviously my hormones were shifting, but it was more than that. Well, it was more than that. It was like I was having this full-on identity crisis, and I just didn't want to be that safe space that everyone kind of came to me for, or like even, it sounds bad, but just, all that responsibility of caring for your kids and just not taking care of myself. It's like that self-abandonment. And so I just kept overriding my own boundaries, and it was it burnout? I'm not sure, but it was definitely a chronic self-abandonment issue. And as I've been learning to tune into my nervous system and the whole vagal nerve theory, it's kind of about like boundaries are a big part of resetting that nervous system, because you start to realize how much you need to be regulated to hold boundaries. So, yes, it was definitely learning to say no in the right places and yes in the right places. So, interesting journey.
It is
and not an easy one, I would say.
Very, very true. And I think, and no offense to men, but I do think as women we juggle so many different things as well, and it's about, and we're taught to be good girls. So I call it the good girl curse in my book, upcoming book, launching in a couple of, well, it will be launched by the time you hear this.
I'm excited. I can't wait to read it.
I'm very excited, but
I've already bought my copy.
Just so you know.
I've already bought
I
my
know you
copy.
did. I know you did, and I have to sign it for you.
Yes, please.
But I think just that the shape shifting, the good girl curse, the trying to fit in that we always do because we want to be liked. We've been taught to be liked. Been taught to be kind of quiet, but we do that at the detriment of our own selves, our own self worth, and our own energy. And, you know, like we touched on in a previous episode when we were talking about imposter syndrome, it starts with self worth, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
saying yes to everything and you're undermining your own value and your own worth,
Mm.
then
Hmm.
how are other people going to see you? And obviously, as somebody who's recently recognized her own neurospicy side and going, oh my God, is that what really happened there?
Yeah.
It is a minefield because I've always been that person that goes in and says, oh, let me fix this problem. I can do this. I can do this.
Mm.
And I run around like an energy bunny, I guess,
Mm.
and try to do that. So if you are on that neurospicy spectrum, your brain doesn't necessarily run in, it definitely doesn't run in straight lines, right? It goes off.
No.
There's butterflies that we have to follow and bring in and take with us on the journey. And you know, quite often the world rewards availability, I think. Um,
We've talked about
and
shiny badges.
yeah, exactly. Shiny badges, good girl codes, all those kind of things. But when these boundaries are set by others, or in actual fact, I think we set more boundaries the wrong way, wrong kind of boundaries for ourselves for what we can do. So there's boundaries for what you accept and what you say yes and what you say no to, but also boundaries where we go, oh, they wouldn't like that. Because I know that has been a huge part of my journey where I'm kind of go, oh, well, I can help with this. Let me do this. Let me do this,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm.
Um, but then I went, okay, if I got a no, I'd go, oh, okay, they don't want me to come along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
I say get that rejection center. But but really I think boundaries can be a rescue as long as you are recognize them and both ways, you know,
Mm.
when there aren't boundaries set by others or when you have to set boundaries for inbound stuff. But I guess
Can I also add into that
yeah.
perhaps when, you know, as a part of our conditioning as children, it's it's kind of where the process of boundary setting starts, obviously, right? But you know, then as an adult, if you sort of haven't allowed those boundaries to evolve with your adulthood, you could still be running on those old
Mm,
childhood systems. And the reason why you had those boundaries in the first place was so that you felt safe or you
stay
kept
safe.
yourself safe,
Mm,
and therefore those boundaries were necessary as a child. But
yeah.
as you evolve those boundaries, we might still be functioning on those boundaries that we set all those many years ago without
Mm,
consciously updating them to the, you know, current system as an
mm,
adult. And therefore, you know, unless we become conscious and aware that they're no longer necessary or serving us,
mm, mm.
we're still running on these old programs. So I think, you know, and that's where the good girl complex comes from, and you know,
Or
people
the curse,
pleasing,
as I like to
a
call it.
lot of the people pleasing type of
Yeah.
stuff, because you know that's what kept you safe, that's what kept you fed, that's what kept the roof over your head, that's what kept you going to school and getting educated or getting a lift to netball training or whatever.
Or getting
Is like if
educated despite everybody else around you saying you maybe shouldn't.
yeah, yeah, right. And so you know it's kind of um and I think when you get to this sort of 40 plus age, or when your hormones start playing around with your mind, and things start coming out, and you sort of address your identity as an
Mm,
adult,
mm,
unless you've sort of been consciously doing that, which
mm,
you know, maybe there are people who do that. And I promise, like I was, you know, I yogaed from a very young age. I meditated from a very young age. I read Buddhist, Hindu, a religious text from a very young age, when, you know, and partied at the same time. But I was nerdy enough to be conscious of myself. But for some reason, I didn't update my boundaries. And
Yeah, like
it was something that I overlooked.
boundary 5-0 sort of thing, right? I just have to jump in because I think it's funny you talking. For those of you who are not watching but listening, Steph's cat has just been walking all over her because that's what happens in when you don't set boundaries, right? I know she
Oh
was
my
talking to
gosh.
the kid. She did not.
Here's a live vision of my life.
Anyway, what does I think there's some science around setting boundaries as well that it improves mental health
Definitely.
and removes or reduces at least emotional exhaustion. And I think that's kind of quite important to bear in mind as well, like setting boundaries, but setting boundaries your way, making them your edge, right?
Mm. And in alignment with where you're at in your life and fitting your
Right.
current values and
Your
your current
season
lifestyle, this season of your
for
life.
your
And
season.
And also sitting, as I've mentioned a few times, I've been sitting in an Indigenous circle, um, learning how to lead cacao sessions, working
Yeah,
with cacao. And the one thing that they have really brought to the forefront of my mind, and in particular in relation to boundaries, is that, I think in colonized cultures we like to be saviors, like we like to be, again, that
like to
shiny
think
badge,
of
we want to
ourselves
save.
as others.
Yeah, and so what they are suggesting is you got to fill your own cup and know where the boundaries of your cup are to actually be able to help other people
Absolutely.
properly, and know when that help is needed, because sometimes if you step in and try and help and they're not ready to receive it, you actually can be more harmful than what you intended. And I
Uh,
promise I've been in that boat so many times.
uh,
It clicked. I was like, oh my God. I
uh,
me
but it's
over
very
helping and trying to please people and trying to say yes and do everything for everyone was actually
uh,
harmful to them, taking and disempowering to them.
yeah,
So
and especially it can be to them and to others as well. And I know that, and I can see that outside of the indigenous circles. Like for example, I had this startup, and I brought on other people, and I've been in there for a while, and I think I talk about it in my book, and they were like talking away, like sending text messages because this is pre a while back, and sending text messages, asking, working out everything, and I'm going, I know the answers to that, but I'm driving, I can't do it, but I actually had to drive because I'd go and pick up my passport. Otherwise, I'd be too late. But by me then pulling back, they actually were then empowered, if I can use that term, or
yes,
enabled to work it out themselves. And
work it
then
out.
I took some load off myself. But that was not a willing boundary I set for myself. That was an
And I
enforced
get.
boundary that I set you
And
know?
if we can use that as a reframe, that boundaries
Mm,
aren't selfish. It's not
yeah,
selfish to
yeah,
go and get your passport, because you
no,
actually kind of need that to get to wherever you need to go if you're traveling somewhere, right? And if you don't have it and you
especially when
miss
you only
out,
have one.
yeah, right. So, well, yeah. And so it's not selfish. And
Yeah,
yeah, you allow people to find their boundaries and their
yeah,
capacity and their abilities. And so, yes, that has been a very powerful reframe for me, that it's not selfish
definitely.
to have time to myself, or it's not selfish to just let my kids hang out by themselves for an hour or so. I mean, I'm around, but they don't have to, we don't
Yeah,
have to be interconnected, and I don't have to be supervising them now. They're older,
yeah.
so I don't have to be in that way. And,
They still need you.
just
They still need you.
they
They still
still need
want
me.
you.
Yeah. But as we're all evolving together, it's
Yeah.
learning how those boundaries can change as we move through different seasons.
But I
So,
think it's also important to look at how, as we're talking about children and maybe relationships and things, that boundaries get tested everywhere.
mhm.
Emotional boundaries when you're low but show up big. Digital boundaries where your phone pings you like a needy toddler. That sort of stuff, right?
Mm,
So,
mhm.
I think it's important to bear that in mind that they are tested continuously. So, I guess you touched a little bit on it with in terms of I mean, we had a funny episode just this week where like things hadn't worked out the way that we had, and then it was like kind of go, we had a meeting set up, and then we um,
My
uh,
life hit the
life
fan.
got in the way, and then but then also the and I think there is actually a connection, and I don't know if that is scientifically proven, between boundaries and guilt, because and the whole thing around being a good girl and shape shifting and all that sort of stuff. Because um, I was fine when you couldn't do it. I just wanted to have a short meeting. Obviously, we are not very good at having short meetings, right? Let's just touch base shortly. And Steph was going, no, 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 not now. She had the kids at home and everything. And it was like,
Only because I know our 5 minutes is never 5 minutes, and I was like,
oh,
"I
it's never
can't do
fun.
it, Gry."
I
I
absolutely
ca
agree with that.
I didn't
But
have
then
brain
there's like
space.
the implicit guilt that we feel when we don't show up, even for our friends, right?
Mm,
Or
yeah,
especially for our friends, I don't know.
mm,
Um, because we're kind of going, okay, uh, we've set the boundaries, and we have to set boundaries for ourselves, and it's not selfish. And then it's about finding that compassion. And we talk about these things, right? Because we want
mm,
to make sure that the other person is absolutely okay, and that there is, well, yeah, there's pressure, and then we go, okay, well, off we go.
yeah,
Here's my boundaries.
yeah,
This is my expectations, and I think that's really important in friendships, professional relationships, personal relationships, kids, parents, everything.
mm,
So I just
mm.
made that all up, but that's okay.
No,
It's a little bit
and,
of script.
and I think the beautiful thing that I appreciate about, uh, well, it started off as a work relationship that's turned into what I feel is a friendship, is that,
Mm,
I did feel guilty because I felt like I was letting you down, but I was literally in a space of did not have capacity to have a 5-minute meeting, which I knew wasn't going to be 5 minutes. But then I also appreciate when we did reconnect that we were able to share it and discuss it, because I know that I get a bit uptight and my guilt gets a bit defensive, and
good.
therefore I get a bit like and then
We all do that, and it's okay. And it's like, okay, so what's eating you up today? So when it comes to setting boundaries, I think it's more about like, okay, so, and I do this. I do this with my partner. I'm going, okay, well, he is overstepping my boundaries, not in a bad way, not in a coercive
physical
control or
or
anything, but
mm.
things like
Yeah, a
how
life
he
way,
like doing the dishes the wrong way. Uh,
or not doing dishes, no
no, he,
washing.
he does
Anyway,
do dishes.
mm.
Uh,
Just not the right way,
no, no, I call it
not the way you like it.
I call it rinsing the dishes. Um, like that. But it's just, but then I do things that he can't stand. Like he,
Yeah.
I have several mountains of clothes, which I know what's in those mountains, and it drives him insane. But but sometimes it gets to a point where you just go, okay, well, that is actually something's going on for me here. Like, and what
Mm.
is going on for you when you're doing that? Because it's driving me potters. It's my
And
sensitivity to certain things.
And I guess that's where you're finding your edge. Like, at what point do you tip over,
Yeah.
you know, over the
Or at
edge, or
yeah.
and can you get to it before you tip?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
know I've done that before, because I know that I've felt with friends, and I know that I've not been nice,
Mm,
because I've gotten to that stage where I'm going, okay, that's enough. Because I
mm,
haven't addressed it
yeah,
early enough.
mm,
And
yeah.
I don't want to be nasty. And I know
No
I
way.
can feel it. I've seen it in myself, and I'm going,
Inst
that's not good.
Yeah, instant regret. And I
Yep.
think, particularly, being a mother,
Yeah.
I my edge is an emotional boundary is very blurry, and,
Mhm.
my kids can quickly find the spot that just tips me over, and then I find myself, you know, bubbling over and saying all these things, and then I'm like, "Oh, dang it, that I didn't," that's not what I intended. I didn't want to say it that way. And now I've hurt their feelings, and that's not what I
Yeah.
actually meant. But they really shitted me off because they were just kept going. And, I didn't get in at the right time to regulate my nervous system and respond rather than react. And so I feel like
But
parenting is constantly readdressing, where's that edge? Where's that edge? Where's that edge?
I think also, and I don't have kids, but I kind of take on the whole world as my kids. Uh, but, but I think that sometimes we feel that if we set boundaries too early, you get judged. I don't know about you, but
Mm,
I know that I
mm,
do. So I'm like, that's just me being petty. That's just me being petty. That's just me being petty. But now I'm freaking furious. That's me being
yeah.
petty. Oh, this is so annoying. I mean, I'm going to reference you all know I have a girl crush on Mel Robbins, and Let Them theory, so freaking awesome, right? It's like,
Yeah.
let them.
That's
I mean,
powerful.
it doesn't work always for me.
No.
I mean, I
Yeah.
still road rage, and then I go, no,
Mm.
no, let them. But I do think that, and that's okay. But if we can regulate ourselves earlier and feel
Yeah.
that it's not selfish, and kind of go, you know what, when you do that,
Have compassion for yourself.
yeah,
Mm.
like, but position when you do that, this is what's going on for me, you know. But I
I've
think
got
that I think we need to kind of get to setting, you know, can we set micro boundaries? Can we set boundaries that aren't
mm,
set in
mm,
stone, that are, you know, fluid,
mm,
porous,
mm,
pliable in a way, but
mm.
not in a nasty way? I'm talking about the little things, obviously not the big things, obviously not, you
No,
know,
no.
with everything that's going in the world, and family and domestic violence, and
Yeah.
invasions of countries.
Different conversation.
Talking about
Different
little
conversation.
things that,
Yeah. Yeah,
the
yeah.
the little narky things that for highly sensitive people can feel unsurmountable, right?
Yes.
It's like,
100%.
but I can't say that because I'm so that's just me being petty, that I'm just not being
Mm.
nice enough and things like that. So it's actually blocking that thing from ourselves and going, you know what? I can say that. I can stop
Well,
it.
the research shows that when you ignore those signals, the ones that you're saying it's petty, it's just me being petty,
Mm,
that's where we stay in a sympathetic overdrive, and it's fight or flight mode. And in that stage, we're not digesting and we're not resting, and we disconnect. And I think that's when the reaction pops up
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than the response that you would
And
like
it
to
can be
give.
wicked.
It goes out the window.
And so you're saying that if we are able to, if I can paraphrase, if we're able to regulate earlier, or actually catch it before it flies out the
Well,
window.
when you're saying I'm petty, I'm being petty,
Yeah.
that's a signal to you saying um, that you've framed it as petty, but actually your body's telling you this is something that you're
Mm,
not
mm, mm.
going to like if you
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
say
yeah,
something now, or if you don't respond in a way that's um, attuned to what your body and nervous system needs. So, like when they're getting petty, when you say they're getting petty, maybe you need to get up and say, "Oh, I need to go get a drink of water" or something,
that's it.
rather than
And is that down?
sitting there and just being like, "No, it's just me. It's just," you know what I mean? Like,
Did you do belly breathing or something to kind of
I guess
activate
it.
your parasympathetic nervous system? That's the vagus nerve and things like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean,
not my
you
field of
could.
expertise.
I mean, you could, but it depends which setting you're in. Like, if you're at home or wherever and you can find the space to do that. But if you're in public, you might need to just exit the situation so you can go do that
Mm,
and do it politely so that it doesn't escalate, I guess. One thing I used to get when I was fully triggered, I remember having this massive knot in my tummy, and I felt like I was just holding and pushing this thing down.
yeah.
And like the more I tried to push and more I tried to hold it in, like it just felt like it came up like a volcano and just erupted.
Mm,
And I was working at the school at the time, and I shared that with my psychologist friend, and she said, you can't control the outside world. The only thing we can control is ourselves. And
Yeah,
so if you feel that knot, that's before it, rather than me, what I was doing was just pushing it down. What I
yeah,
probably should have done was acknowledged, I feel a knot. I can feel myself getting angry here. I can feel that I'm about to explode. I
yeah.
need to recognize this and do something.
Angry or
Whereas I
sad.
was,
Mm. Yeah.
I, but at that time I didn't have that capacity, and I just went, "Bleh," and my words were fire, and they literally burnt everything inside. So it was terrible. And I felt, and the guilt I felt afterwards was horrible. And
Absolutely, because it's not who you are, but it is part of
no
who you
way.
are when you don't
Yeah.
protect yourself and you don't, I don't want to even say protect, acknowledge yourself. You know,
Yeah.
when you recognize there's something there and you go, no, 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 that's fine. I'm just going to let it go. And it would be great if we could let it go, but not
Mm,
always possible.
mm,
But
mm.
I do think it's really, really important to recognize that we can't change others, and we can only, and we don't have
Definitely
to
not.
take things personally even either. But sometimes these things are on a slow burn, so it's not something that happens
No.
this could be over months, right? So you have
Yeah.
some relationship with a friend or a colleague or whatever, and it's okay most of the time, and then there's this little thing
Yeah.
that irks, and then it irks more, and you go, no, I can't. Anyway, we've over talked about this topic now,
Yeah.
so and I think we're getting towards the end as well. So we just want to make sure that we. Um, I
Well,
think
I
we
guess.
covered a few of the other points we had, which is like when boundaries feel hard, and I think we've covered that to kind of
Mm,
uh,
mm.
uh, uh, they feel hard all the time sometimes, or setting them and following them as well. I think,
Yeah.
but
I think
yeah.
sometimes for me, I can set them, but can I uphold them is my challenge,
Mm, 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 mm.
And especially like, maybe for one kid, if they've been good, I'll be like, oh, yeah, right, let that boundary go. But then the next day, they've pissed me off. So the boundary's back up again. They're like, what? So that can be confusing as well.
Because now you're talking
So
about
it's
setting
being
boundaries for
consistent.
other people as well.
Well, boundaries for me that I let up and down depending on the
Uh,
interaction.
so I mean, I don't know if there's some tips for the listeners or anybody that is interested. I wonder, is there a way that you can almost like I'm a design thinker, right? So I like to co-design things, like where you sit down with you, and I've done this in work situations where we've had overstepping boundaries. Is it overstepping boundaries? It's just different perspectives, right? In some situations, in the work situation, you'll have the same at home because we're all individuals and we need to
Mm,
celebrate differences. Just had to drop that one in, one of my key
yeah,
phrases. But but
absolutely.
but could you do like a fun exercise or a fun activity at home where you kind of go through those awkward situations with your family and kind of go, okay, so when this happened, what's going on, and you kind of do like the empathy, the discovery, and you go through the whole design and you come up with a process or a way of communicating together, because I know you can do that certainly in a business sense, and kids are awesome at this. I do some
Mm.
work in schools and things, and I just love chatting with kids. What do you
Oh,
reckon? Is
kids
that
are
an idea for people to
well, for
practice?
me, I use the car. The car is a space where, and
Oh
often
yes.
we used to say this when working with parents in schools, is like
Yeah.
when you're in the car, like that's the perfect time because you're not eye to eye and you're sort of sitting next to each other. So it's kind of allows this space for you to be like, so what do you think? And what happened here? And do you want to share what this situation brought up for you? And so I use the car quite a lot and plus we do a lot of traveling because I got to drive
Yes,
my
you do.
kids to dance every 3 days a week. It's 20 minutes.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
do a lot of, I hold space in the car to
yeah.
unpack things, and sometimes they don't want to either, so I also just hold that space make it a safe space so that when there is something that pops up or there is a boundary that's been crossed, particularly at school with friends, or, you know, or even if I've lost my shit and I want to apologize, I use that space. So the kids, my kids anyway, know that that's a space where we can really explore. And even I know my husband, when he picks them
Even
up
your
and I'm
husband.
not in the car, you know, that's their space for them to connect. So the car has kind of been a space where we can unblock and unlock and have these cross communications without, you know, this direct, you know, ness.
Yeah. And I think there's some really interesting aspects to that from a science and evidence perspective as well. Not that I know any of this, I'm just repeating things that I've heard in conversations, but there are cultural differences in terms, like, we are kind of very, we like to look at each other's eyes, right? Not
Mm,
you and I necessarily, but culturally. But in some
mm,
cultures, it's not. Men as well handle things much easier if they don't have to look straight at each other, right?
mm, mm.
So,
Interesting. Yeah.
and in a lot of the indigenous culture, I know friends who have teenagers, and the only time you can actually talk to your teenager is in the car
Mm, yeah.
because
It's a
they can't
beautiful
engage at
space.
home, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so I think there's a lot to be said for that because you kind
Mm,
of can't go anywhere.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It can
So,
also, if you don't, so I've actively created that as a safe space. It can
yeah.
also not be a safe space if that's not
Mm.
thing. But I think what basically weaving this all together, what we're trying to say is that if you say no, it's not shrinking.
No.
And in fact, creating boundaries for yourself and not is not a selfish act, but it's actually expanding your capacity to be who you are. And by being who you are, you actually allow other people to be who they are. And it's actually a very beautiful,
Mm.
symbiotic kind of interdependent relationship that can form and thrive when you focus on you and not worrying about everybody else so much, but
Yeah,
in a
because,
respectful way.
yeah.
Like, you know, if they're sick, you worry, or if they need help, you help. But it's not like
uh,
overstepping beyond your
no,
means. So,
no, it's really,
so
yeah, go ahead.
if it's okay, I'll just say these last three things. Choose one area. I challenge the audience to choose one area of something they would like to protect today, this week, sorry. So choose one thing to protect this week, whether that's your time, your emotions, or your tech. Craft a boundary statement. I'm offline after 8 p.m. I'll respond tomorrow. And start to observe your body when, you know, these little, like what Gree was saying, these little, what did you call them?
I don't know.
Little niggles
Yeah,
niggles that are sort of you're trying not to react.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
rather than trying not to react,
Mm.
how about see where it tingles or what happens in your
Yeah,
body when that starts happening, and rather than ignoring it, being like, oh, feel it, acknowledge
yeah,
it, and
yeah.
see what happens, and see if anything shifts.
Mm. And that, I guess, let it be imperfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, let it be new, but let it be yours.
Yeah,
Because, by setting boundaries, you protect your energy, and your energy should be sacred to a certain extent, right? And your boundaries are not optionals. And I do want to add something about respecting other people's boundaries as well, because I do think
go
that
for
is
it.
really important. No, just that little thought bubble on what happens when we see other people's boundaries. Do we fully respect them?
And in respecting them, maybe I know sometimes I'm like, you know, just in light of everything we've said, I can be, what's the word, I can feel like if someone says no to me, that I'd be like, oh, that hurts, but rather it's not actually personal. It's more that something in their world or their life is going on and they need that space. So
Yeah.
not taking it personally is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that is so key. That's a big aha moment for most of us, that, you know, it's not selfish. And I guess, whatever you're doing, uh, just listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to your heart, your gut, and try to figure out what it's trying to tell you. Is there a different way of doing things? So we're not really
Totally.
behind, we're becoming one boundary at a time.
Okay.
Cool. Now we're still trying to decide which topic we like most for next time.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week or see you in the next podcast.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Vitalify Unplugged. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a friend. Hit follow or subscribe. And don't forget, we love hearing from you. So send us a message and tell us what's lighting you up. See you in the next episode.